Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your patience and thank you for joining us today. I'm Jake Lardis. I'll be moderating today's session, The Modernization Mandate, Reducing TCO by Moving Beyond HCL DX. I'm joined by Jeff Handa, Senior Manager of Solution Delivery at Liferay, and Craig Yerger, Founder and Chief Architect at Asponte. Between the two of them, we've got some deep platform expertise and real-world migration experience in the same room, so we'll make sure that you leave with something practical today. Just quick logistics before we dive in. Feel free to leave any questions in the chat. And we're also recording today, so you'll get a link afterwards if you want to revisit anything. With that, let's get into it. Here's how today is structured. We'll open with a platform comparison covering the structural differences that drive long-term value. From there, Jeff will walk through the total cost of ownership picture and the operational case for modernization. And then Craig will take us through what modernization actually looks like in practice, the migration methodology, the approach, and what Asponte brings to that process. To set the stage, the digital experience platform space is evolving quickly, and the conversations that we're hearing from organizations right now aren't so much about features, but they're about whether the platform they're on is still working for them structurally, whether it's costing more than it should, if it's slowing their teams down, or if it's going to be able to support where they're headed for the long term. So today we're taking a real look at where HCL DX stands structurally alongside Liferay DXP and what that gap really means for your organization's costs, agility, and long-term trajectory. Before we get into the platform specifically, it's worth taking a step back to understand what's driving the market right now. The themes that are coming up in analyst research are the same ones that show up in conversations with companies about their current HCL environments. The shift towards unified architectures, the demand for deployment flexibility, the move towards secure, authenticated portals, and the pressure to empower business users without creating an IT backlog. So these are the pain points that tend to surface when organizations start asking whether their current platform is still the right fit. So what does that look like in the Liferay and HCL side specifically? I'm going to hand it off to you, Jeff.
All right, thanks, Jake. And before we talk about where we're going, I think it's important that we take a look at where all of you are probably starting from. HCL DX, formerly IBM WebSphere Portal, is a platform with a lot of history. And I don't say that dismissively. There's a reason that you selected it, and there's a reason that it has stuck around in the market for as long as it has. It was built for the kind of enterprise complexity that most other platforms weren't thinking about at the time. It had granular security models, deep customization available through APIs, and it had a track record of working in some of the most heavily regulated industries in the world: banking, government, healthcare, you name it. So this isn't about saying that the platform was a mistake or selecting the platform was a mistake at the time. For the problems it was solving and how it was solving them, it made a lot of sense. But here's where we think, things start to show some cracks. And I think if you're here on the webinar today, then you're probably already feeling some of these pains. The complexity that once made HCL DX powerful has, for a lot of organizations, become a thing that really slows everything down. We're talking about very fragmented portfolios, very high operational overheads, user interface that frankly wasn't designed with today's modern marketing teams in mind. If you've ever watched a brand new user try to find their way around the system, I think you'll know what I mean. And then there's maintenance question. This isn't a platform that you can just hand off to a small team and walk away from. It really demands a lot of technical expertise just to keep the lights on, let alone to keep up with the demands that your business partners are making upon you. So I think that's an honest picture of where a lot of us are coming from. And that context is really going to matter as we start to talk about what modernization actually looks like today in 2026. Now, looking ahead at the other side of the table, we have Liferay DXP. Now, as somebody who's been part of the Liferay community for 17 years, obviously I'm not a neutral party when it comes to talking about Liferay DXP. But what I'm going to talk about really is not built on marketing language. It's built on the architecture itself, the platform itself, and what we see in real-world implementations. So what is Liferay DXP? Well, at its core, it's really a unified integration first platform. And those two words, unified and integration first, they really matter more than they might sound at first glance. Now, a lot of the pain that we talk about when it comes to HCL DX comes from fragmentation. Multiple tools, multiple vendors, multiple teams just trying to get things to talk to each other. Liferay was designed and built from the ground up to bridge that gap, to sit comfortably between your marketing-led public sites, your secure, authenticated, self-serve environments, all without requiring you to bolt multiple systems together. All of Liferay is homegrown. All of Liferay was developed by Liferay from the ground up, so you won't have that type of disjointed architecture behind the scenes. Now, out of the box, Liferay has very strong support for authenticated experiences, thinking about customer portals, partner portals, supplier portals, intranets. All of those experiences where security and personalization are important and have to coexist. And when it comes to connecting Liferay with other systems of record, ERPs, CRMs, other legacy systems, that modular architecture makes integration a lot cleaner than what many of you are probably dealing with today. Now, on the UX side of things, this matters enormously if your business users are the ones who actually need to move fast and work inside of the platform. Things like drag and drop page building, fragments, and load code capabilities, these aren't afterthoughts. These are fundamental parts of Liferay that have been deliberately implemented to close that gap between what IT builds and what the business is demanding. And it really unites the two so that your business departments, marketing, and others can really operate on their own. Now, strategically, the platform is continuing to evolve. Liferay is investing in AI-driven capabilities, cloud-native deployment mechanisms, low-code, no-code capabilities, really expanding what's possible for those teams that need to do more without always having to go back to the development team. And that's the foundation that we're building on. In the rest of this webinar, we're going to be getting specific about what that means to your TCO, your team's velocity, and how you can move forward. All right, so talking a little bit about the specifics, I'm going to talk through this table, hopefully at a high level, not read every little thing to you, but at a row by row overview. One of the most important things I think is probably the platform architecture itself, especially if you're looking at the total cost of ownership. Liferay DXP is one platform, as I mentioned, one code base, one subscription, one vendor. Everything was built by Liferay. HCL DX, by contrast, is really a portfolio of integrated products. On paper, that may sound like you're getting more, but in practice, it usually just means more licensing conversations, more integration work, more specialized expertise that you need to have to keep everything running. And when something breaks, a lot of finger pointing and tracing and trying to track down where the problem actually originates from. Next, talking about the Java Foundation, they are both Java platforms, which is fantastic for you if you have Java expertise. But Liferay runs on Java 21. That means we support not only the old portlet standards, but also the evolving portlet standards and other evolving Java technologies. HCL DX is still on Java 8, which has hit its end of life a long time ago. So if you're looking towards the future and you're looking for a platform that will continue to grow, you're going to want something that has a more modern base to build upon. Another thing is the infrastructure efficiency. This one definitely has a direct line to your monthly cloud bill. Liferay can run comfortably on 2 to 4 vCPUs. It can run in Kubernetes. It's software agnostic. You're not locked into any specific JVM or specific database. Really, Liferay is capable of running on any app server, any modern database. HCL DX, on the other hand, requires a lot more intensive processing just to get the same output. It's also historically been tied to other parts of the IBM WebSphere stack and databases like DB2. So it's not just about the performance, it's also about the cost of all of those other associated systems. Now, Liferay gives you a very flexible deployment approach. Liferay supports SaaS, PaaS, cloud native, as well as self-hosted. So if data sovereignty is an issue, you can support that through self-hosted or our cloud native. HCL DX really is focused primarily on on-premises. They are starting to make some progress, I guess, with PaaS and SaaS, but not in the same level of maturity that Liferay has. Now, for organizations that need flexibility in their infrastructure, as you evolve, working with a vendor who's evolving that story constantly really pays off. Another area to consider is the user experience and low code. This is where the business side of the house, definitely gets excited. Liferay has invested heavily in making the platform as accessible as possible to everybody, whether you're a developer or not. Again, I mentioned earlier the drag and drop page building, the fragments, all of those elements of a modern low code platform mean your business users will be able to do more without as much IT involvement. HCL DX, on the other hand, is frequently described by people as that use it as being complex or legacy heavy. And that description has real impacts on your day-to-day cost of ownership. Definitely means more IT involvement and a much slower velocity in terms of turning around new features and new capabilities. And when it comes to integration, Liferay is really API first. We offer out-of-the-box connectors for some ERP, CRM, and legacy systems, as well as an extensibility framework that's designed to work with external systems. While HCL DX is extensible, it often means that you're going to have to build a lot more and support a lot more. So if you're trying to reduce your development, your custom development overhead, that's a huge difference between the two platforms. So again, we're really looking at the difference here between a modern unified approach and foundation versus a portfolio approach with a lot of different moving parts and a lot of friction at every layer of that portfolio. Now, looking ahead at why Liferay specifically, well, when you're looking at a migration, modernization really can't just mean starting over. The closest thing that there is really for all of you that are on HCL DX today, the closest thing that we have to a risk-free path is to find another Java-based platform that provides a lot of the same baseline capabilities with that modernization. And that's really what Liferay does for you. So your team's expertise in Java and Java portlets continues to add value. You're not going to ask your developers to learn completely new languages. You're not going to be asking your architects to rethink everything from scratch. And this is huge when you're trying to build that internal momentum for a successful migration. Now, from a cost perspective, consolidating onto a single platform with one subscription, lower infrastructure overhead, and predictable pricing is also a meaningful shift for most of you that are on HCL DX today. We saw in that story the infrastructure numbers on the previous slide, and that's not theoretical. You really can get more performance and more output from less hardware. And of course, there's the business user story. This is one of the biggest drivers that we hear from organizations that are making the move. Business teams can just build and publish a lot more than ever before without always going back to IT every time. Everybody moves faster. Business is happy. IT can now focus on the really important and complicated problems that they need to solve. And then finally, Liferay is an open source tool, but it's enterprise backed. You get full visibility into the product, no black boxes, but you still get that commercial support that you need, and you still have that long-term commitment that most enterprise organizations are looking for. That's the combination that really makes this kind of the closest like-for-like path for HCL DX customers that are looking to a modernization approach. And of course, when we talk about these platform decisions, they're not just about the software. It's about everything that surrounds it. And this is an area where Liferay positions itself as an open source platform backed by the commercial enterprise offering that we talked about. On the ecosystem side, Liferay has a global certified partner network. And that means that when you need implementation support, when you need integration expertise or regional coverage, you're not limited to just a short list of vendors. There's a competitive marketplace of partners out there who know the platform, and some, like our partner here, Asponte, have a proven track record of migrating complex solutions from HCL to Liferay DXP. Now, in addition to partners, there's also an ecosystem of developers and contributors that are in the Liferay community. They're sharing code, they're building on top of Liferay in ways that extend what the platform can do and offering those things up through our Liferay marketplace. And talent and training also follows on the same foundation. Liferay's Community Edition has such a broad adoption that there is a very large pool of developers, administrators, architects who already have expertise with the Liferay platform. And on top of that, we also offer training making it easier for people to get on board. Free training through our learn.liferay.com platform, as well as public and private classroom trainings. So you're not dependent on just reading the documentation when your project is ramping up. And it's important. Every minute counts to try to get that solution out the door. So taking all of this together, this is really the kind of ecosystem that makes a platform not only easier to implement and to stand up, but over the long term, it makes a platform that's easier to staff, easier to support, and easier to grow into over time.
Thanks, Jeff. So we looked at the structural differences between the two platforms, but I want to connect that to what most of the HCL customers are feeling day to day, which is the cost side of this, because the platform architecture argument and the TCO argument really go hand in hand. And so Jeff is going to walk us through what that TCO picture actually looks like, and I think it'll give useful context for anyone who's had to make this case internally. So Jeff, back to you.
Yeah, Jake. So TCO is one of those terms that does get thrown out, around a lot. So let's get specific what we're actually talking about here. Now, the pricing model is a good place to start because it's often where the surprises live. A transparent subscription with no hidden fees sounds like a basic expectation, but if you've been managing a complex HCL portfolio, then you know that licensing conversations can get pretty complicated pretty quickly, and especially when there are different products that have different entitlements. Predictable pricing means that you can actually make plans around it. Now, low code efficiency is an area where maybe TCO is a little bit harder to quantify, but it's definitely something to consider, and it generally involves waiting on and working with your IT team. Every time a business user has to log a request, wait for a developer, go through a review cycle just to publish a page or to update a component, that's time and that's money that's involved. And when those tasks can turn into self-service tasks, well, then your IT team gets to focus on the work that actually requires their expertise, and the business is allowed to really move at whatever speed they need to. Now, technical debt is another one of those components that compounds quietly, builds up over time until suddenly it's not such a quiet thing anymore. One of the things that makes Liferay's customization model different is that it is designed so that your customizations don't block upgrades. Liferay's client extension model means that there is a very clear and clean separation between your code and the Liferay platform code. And that means that you're not going to get stuck into an old version just because somebody wrote a workaround 3 years ago or customized something in the core and nobody wants to touch it for fear of breaking it. And that's a really meaningful shift for your long-term platform health. As Liferay continues to evolve, if you're able to keep up with those upgrades, then you're going to be able to benefit from all of the new features and functionality that we are continually adding to the platform. We're doing that on a quarterly basis. There are new features that are going to help you run your business effectively. Now, when we talk about infrastructure, whether you want SaaS, whether you want PaaS, cloud native, or self-hosted, Liferay gives you the flexibility to choose the model that fits your cost structure today, but it also gives you the opportunity to change as your needs may change over time. And if we're talking about our managed side, our managed offering, we're talking about things like 99.95% uptime or SLA on that application layer for our Liferay SaaS customers. Now that's a huge potential burden on the operational side that you're offloading from your team to Liferay. Now, taken together, these aren't four separate features, but just four different places where costs can quietly accumulate on a legacy platform, and four places where Liferay is really designed to avoid that TCO trap in the future. Now, if we want to talk about specific numbers, because at some point the conversation always gets around to numbers, the real headline here is that Liferay DXP is really significantly less expensive than comparable HCL and DX environments. It requires less than half of the infrastructure typically to run on. Now, the figures themselves are going to vary quite a bit based on the configurations, but when we're talking about these comparisons, we're comparing like for like. So we're not taking a small, DXP deployment compared to a large HCL deployment. Now, some of this is going to come down to what pricing model you're on. So if you're on the session-based pricing model or some of the newer pricing models, the numbers may vary, but there are very significant cost savings to be had just from the subscription costs alone. Now, it really comes down to two things. The licensing model with Liferay, it's a very transparent single subscription. There's no multi-product complexity involved, no unpredictable price increases at renewal time. So predictable pricing, um, even though it sounds like a basic expectation, is not always something that you may be familiar with from your past dealings. The other thing is the operational overhead. And this is the one that maybe is harder to see on a pricing sheet because we're typically looking at new hardware as we're moving from one system to another. But again, fewer products, fewer things to maintain. Liferay runs more efficiently and can give you more output on less hardware and less processing power. So all of this really compounds together. So when we talk about TCO, we're really talking about all of these things together, the licensing costs, the infrastructure costs, and then that operational overhead, fewer products that you have to maintain, a smaller portfolio of vendors that you may need to stitch together. All of those things make a very significant impact. Now, I think this is probably a good place to maybe share a real user story because I think it does illustrate what we're talking about here with this TCO conversation, maybe better than a simple data table can. A good example is a customer of ours, Team Global Express, who came to Liferay with an interesting position. They were relatively newly formed company. They were growing. They needed to stand up multiple platforms, and they needed to do it quickly. They had external facing needs. They also had some internal facing needs. And a lot of times when you run into those types of situations, the instinct is to go out and find the best customer portal vendor that you can and get the best tool maybe for managing your intranet and your internal employee experience, and then maybe another tool for your public website or your partner website. Now, thankfully, we talked to them and they didn't go down that path because going down that path has real costs. Not only are you dealing with multiple vendors, multiple contract negotiations, multiple implementations that you have to go through, separate licensing, separate infrastructure, it all just really adds up. Instead, they selected Liferay as their platform. And what that meant in practice was that they didn't need to build multiple platforms. They didn't need to go through multiple contract negotiations. One set of hardware, one set of infrastructure, and for their team, one set of skills to learn gave them everything that they needed for not only their public-facing content, but also their internal and their gated customer portal content. A single team really could, in this case, manage and move seamlessly between the different business units, providing everything that they needed and empowering those business units to be able to build a lot of the output on their own. So organizations that are evaluating migrations of any kind, this is an important story to look into. Not just how much does it cost you to move, but what does it cost you to not move, to stay with what you have, and to stay with a platform that maybe isn't flexible enough to handle all of the various needs that you may have across your complex enterprise. Okay, so I've spent a lot of this session talking about what's broken and how to fix it. This slide isn't really about that. This slide is looking ahead, and in a second, Craig's going to take over and talk more about this. But this slide is really about what life looks like on the other side of this migration process. What is it going to be like when you have successfully migrated to Liferay DXP? And honestly, these aren't really features that I'm talking about, but these are descriptions of what does it feel like if you are in a modern digital experience platform. The first is the speed at which you can move. That's one of the first things that our customers give us in terms of feedback is that once Liferay is in place, the speed at which the business users can move, how they can act and react to the market around them without waiting on IT. And IT isn't spending their cycles on maintenance and workarounds. They're actually contributing in meaningful ways to the organization. So really the whole organization picks up that velocity. And that's not a small thing. That's a huge difference for teams that are used to working on slow, approval-heavy legacy content processes. Another piece is that reduced TCO, that conversation we get to in real day-to-day terms. Once you've moved into a modern infrastructure, once you've moved down to a modern platform, now we're really talking about one architecture, one platform to understand, one team to staff and support that entire digital experience. Every additional tool in that portfolio is going to multiply the overhead that comes along with supporting it, maintaining it, the cognitive load of having to understand as you move between tools. And so just moving into a single subscription and a single platform really gives you a reduced burden and allows you to concentrate on what's important. And then finally, being in a modern cloud-ready platform, um, working with a vendor that is looking to the future and actively producing new features, native AI integrations, flexible deployment models, all of those things allow you to start having conversations within your business that you couldn't have in the past when you were just trying to keep the lights on. And that's really the goal for a platform is to make sure that we are evolving and giving you the features that you need so that you don't have to build everything from scratch. You're able to take those features we give you and put those into immediate use to solve your business needs. So when we pull all of this together, when we look at all of these different things, I think the case for modernization isn't about moving away from HCL DX. I think it's really about moving towards a modern platform like Liferay DXP and all of the benefits that a modern platform can give you.
All right. So as Jeff talked about, right, we have a share, we're both Java-based platforms. Um, if you're not going to migrate from HCL DX to Liferay, then you're going to look to really, dramatically change the underlying foundation they're sitting on. Both platforms share this Java-based foundation, and they have similar features and functions. Each one operates differently, obviously. But they are very similar. So it makes the most sense, if you're running on HCL DX and you're running a portal digital experience platform, that Liferay would be the obvious choice. Next slide, please. So we started doing migrations to the Liferay platform, I think in 2018 was our first. Most recently, we've just finished a major utility provider, a migration for them. They were sort of pressed into this migration based on a lot of the things that Jeff talked about. Their costs were increasing, infrastructure costs were increasing, and they were lacking some functionality that they wanted to take advantage of. So it only made sense for them to explore some different platforms. And as they went through that analysis, they chose the Liferay DXP platform. Not only was the licensing significantly cheaper on the Liferay platform, they had essentially the same exact features that they currently implemented, and they could take advantage of new AI features that they had and other things. So the solution being HCL DX, now we had to move them to that. They had a number of JSR 268 portlets that we were able to convert to the React client extensions. Um, they um, they were getting estimates. It was originally going to take 18 months to move them. However, with the tooling that we've created, we were able to shorten that complete migration to 9 months in total time. They have a shop that's incredibly gifted. They have a lot of really great architects and developers, and this left them in that same Java-based platform. So they were able to leverage all of their skills. And one of the really great results that we got out of that was once we implemented the Liferay platform, it was a very small learning curve for them to change from the HCL DX over to Liferay. They were able to reduce the number of virtual machines, the number of cores that they had up in Azure to a fraction of what they were running with HCL. So overall, it was a big win on cost. It was a win on features and functions. They have a more modern UI that they've implemented. And it's been it was a really big win. We're in the middle of yet another migration now. And all of the same things are sort of coming out. And I think really it's the efficiency, the simplicity. We have the scalable platform still and being able to preserve that expertise. Next slide, please. Over the years, since we've started these, we've kind of created a methodology, right, in order to have the best success out of these migration projects. So we have a set of phases that we go through. And so, we have this discovery and assessment, right? Where we analyze everything in your HCL DX environment. We look at how the content is placed, structured, leveraged, right? We look at how the references to authoring and presentation templates are being done, workflows, their usage and customizations, tag references, plugin usage, we have the themes and skins. So there's a lot of areas that need to be evaluated in the current existing HCL DX implementation in order to successfully migrate those things over to Liferay. As well as obviously the custom applications. Again, the great news there is we were able to use the same foundational, technologies. After the end of this assessment, we're going to provide a scope, a project plan, timeline. And as you can see, we kind of go through custom component handling, testing, and validation, right? There's a lot of testing through a migration to ensure we're having the same results, that things are working as it should and performing as it should. And we've had great results with performance from Liferay. We're essentially getting more miles to the gallon, so to say, with the Liferay implementation. And then, we provide go live support services as well to provide that seamless transition from HCL DX to Liferay. Next slide, please. Along with this, what we've created over the years with our deep knowledge of the HCL DX platform, we've been able to create a number of tools, and this is one of them, but a number of tools to help with the content migration. These tools, started to be developed to assist us, and now we have the tools that you see here on the slide. It's our cross CMS synchronization tool. This allows us to extract all of the content out of your HCL DX platform as a JSON feed, and we can put that into Liferay. This significantly speeds up the time for the migration. We can also provide real-time updates. So as the project goes on, these projects are quite lengthy. So maybe it's 6 months or 9 months or a year. We can continuously provide real-time updates from your live production HCL DX system into the target system for migration into Liferay. Everything is automated. We also have other tools that allow us to provide reports so that we can see when content was created. We can expire content. We can ensure that we just move the items that are the most critical to be moved over with this series of tools that we've created. And there's a link at the bottom if you'd like to take a look at the Liferay marketplace where we do have the cross synchronization, the CMS synchronization tool listed. Next slide, please. Again, we take a phased migration approach. It is the closest like for like. Again, those phases include that research analysis assessment, where a proof of concept in some cases may be necessary. If you have some features or functions that we need to prove out on exactly how we're going to adapt that to the Liferay framework. They do provide similar functionality, but they operate in very different ways. So in rare cases, we do need to do a proof of concept just to validate how we would get things working in the Liferay environment as opposed to the HCL DX environment. And then we would go through, as you can see, a non-prod build, production build, go live support, and then continuous improvement. We have done probably, I think, 8 or more migrations at this point. All of our tooling has gotten better and better each time. I was actually just speaking with our chief technology officer, and he said the next migration is going to be even more amazing because they've come up with a number of different advanced enhancements to our current tooling to make this process even better. So we're just getting better and better. Like I said, we started this in 2018. So, we have 7+ years now migrating these websites and with great success. Next slide, please. So migration challenges, right? Data integrity risks. Lots of things can break. And again, this is where our tooling sort of comes in. We have purpose-built automation. We protect all of these things. And especially the time intensity. When we've worked with other customers that have gone through migration that we haven't participated with, incredibly time-intensive manual process to get the content and everything moved over. As I said before, we've had, with the one customer, we had, greater than 18-month estimates that people were giving them, and we were able to cut that in half. And if we had to do that again, we could even reduce that time even more. Lots of custom components and integrations. Whenever you're dealing with these digital experience environments, you have a tremendous number of custom applications or very specific use cases, that can be quite intense. And so, we've been able to really hammer these things out, and we have a very good track record of doing that. Everything we've done, we focus heavily on not to disrupt business operations, right? This needs to be seamless, needs to be seamless for the users, needs to be seamless for the owners. The way we've sort of included training throughout the migration cycle and being able to get the authors and everybody sort of up to speed. We run, as I said, we have these current content updates going into the Liferay environment, so we can run your legacy system and the new Liferay system in a parallel fashion, so that when we're ready to go live, it's a seamless transition for everybody. And the other thing that we've found, we've tried very hard to control cost overruns. So we do a lot of this legwork up front. It's what we found, a lot of providers, don't take that sort of same time and consideration. The migrations can easily exceed a budget. We've got a really good track record so far of being able to stay on time and budget with the majority of the migrations that we've done. And that really comes from the front-loaded work of the research, analysis, and assessments that we do at the beginning side of the project. Next slide, please. There are a number of these purpose-built tools, not only from us. We have a handful, like I said, from reporting to CMS synchronization and other things, but Liferay as well as introducing some tools that we've been leveraging, and these have been extremely effective. As a matter of fact, we're going to be using one the next couple of weeks in order to enhance another migration that we're working on right now. But they have AI acceleration like assistance, and we've been able to point their AI tool at things like blogs and news, and that AI tool will recreate a lot of those items for us in the Liferay environment, which has been an amazing time saver. And we're just getting ready to use the PDF conversion in order to take these PDFs and turn that into structured web content. But essentially, the ability to be able to point a migration tool at a website and have it create the assets for us on the backside has been amazing. And Liferay continues to lead in this area of creating these sort of AI tools to help everybody get the most out of their technology. Next slide, please. And then there's beyond the migration. So we, once the site goes live, we don't stop there. A number of our customers, we stay with them. We provide this sort of constant development enhancements. We provide support, technical support, where they can reach out for any problems, whether it be with developing a certain asset. Maybe they have an issue on the website that they need solved quickly. And we've been working with corporate intranets, portals, web content since 2010 as a company. The majority of our consultants have been working with these products since the early 2000s. So we are a highly focused company that specializes in portal applications, web content management, custom Java solutions. And so we hope that we'll be able to help you at some point in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you both for going through all that information. I think what came through today is that it's not just a conversation about swapping one platform for another, but whether the platform you're on is still working for you. And if not, then what's that practical structured path forward actually look like? And the Java foundation point is we're sitting with the fact that both platforms share that foundation. Means this migration is truly more accessible than most. And if you want to take that next step, the QR code on the screen goes to a custom migration roadmap you can sign up for. That would be a specific conversation about your environment. Jeff and Craig's information is right there, so please don't hesitate to reach out to either of them directly if you have any questions. With that said, we'll follow up with the recording and any resources we referenced today. And we thank you for your time. Thanks, guys.